Hello, welcome to my channel and the very last card in my deck. So we're in the World card, which is about endings and completion, so it seemed the perfect card to choose. Starting a little bit differently today, you can see I've got the song choice and my card straight here because after this I'm going to go through a flip through of the whole deck and I'm going to show you the deck that I got printed myself as well, so that I could use it and do my own tarot readings with my own deck, which feels very exciting. So I'm going to show you that side by side with this, and I thought I would use that as an opportunity to reflect on how I felt about the project as a whole after these 78 weeks. So some of the practicalities of, the challenges of doing the art, of doing the printing, and maybe some tips as well for you if this is something you might do. But also what it's been like to have Kate Bush as a muse the last 18 months or so, whether my view of Kate Bush and her music has changed during that time, how I feel about tarot now, whether my relationship with tarot has changed, and if I've grown, how I've changed through this process. So maybe some quite deep questions here for a flip through. So yeah, that's ahead. So let me just quickly talk about this World card and my song choice. So I have chosen Ariel from the Ariel album, and it's the last song in that album. It is that sense of having stayed up all night and that hope you get when the bird song and the sun is coming up and you can hear the bird song, and that hope, that feeling of hope, because I suppose it symbolises, doesn't it, that feeling of, that 3 a.m. anxiety we can feel in waking up and that insomnia feeling, but also just in life we have those moments, don't we, when we go through darkness. And I was thinking about, to me, Ariel has that sense of new hope, that whole album does. She had that really difficult time making Red Shoes when her mum was dying during the recording of that, and it was a really difficult album and she was processing a lot of her own loss and grief. And by the time Ariel came out, she'd had a family now. She had Bertie. She had a sense of a new life. And I was thinking too about how we can create from two different perspectives. And this isn't to say one is better than the other, but that, we can create to process difficult emotions and to process a difficult time. And that's the sense I get with Red Shoes and maybe something like The Dreaming as well. But we can also create from a sense of, I just want to share things that, we've got so much joy and ideas and new life in a way to share with others. And the creativity comes from that. And there's this joy in that album, and the joy that, this is a picture from the Before the Dawn tour as well. There's that joy of, I'm ready to come back into the world now and to share something. So I thought it just seemed a really good song choice, and it kind of links, because if you remember from my I had the first song on that side of the album, so The Day is Full of Birds, and then we've got the bird song again by the time we get to the Ariel at the end. So I like the link with the full card as well. For the letters, this was, I don't know if you can see that, but I'd printed off onto sort of glossy paper lots of the earlier cards. So this is, this is an earlier version of the Empress, and there's the 7 of Discs and stuff. So I'd hoped actually to do all of the cards in the deck on this, but it just didn't work. So in the end, I made it into the lettering. So that's what I did there. So I think it's time to go through the flip through. That'd be the best idea. So let me show you first of all. So for the cards that I got printed, when I started the deck, I wasn't sure whether I was going to even bother to get this printed properly or not. I mean, I like the size of these decks, but they're impossible to use, these cards. They're far too big. And I usually use them on the altar. And as soon as I made it, I started to think, oh, I really do want to do some readings with this and get a conversation going with this deck. It's strange, but even though I've created this deck myself, I still don't feel like I know it properly or know it intimately yet, or I feel that it's still got more to tell me and instruct me. So I really wanted to print it. And I looked into various options, and the cheapest option, I just thought, I'm not 100% happy with the artwork. I mean, I'll talk about that in a minute through the flip through. And that this is a tool. It's not something I want to feel precious about. It's not something I want to spend hundreds of pounds getting printed. I just want to see how it works and see how it looks. So I'm in the UK, so I used a local company, quite local to me, called Print From Your Sofa. I will put a link. And so it only cost about 20 something pounds. This is from Etsy. I'll also try and link this company as well. I'd had this badge made ages ago. And this is just a cheap linen bag. So I've just sewn this on to make the bag for the deck. And this, so the backs come from, ended up doing 2 magician cards because I couldn't quite decide which one I liked. And then I thought, oh, this will be a really good one for the backs. So I chose this. The cardstock itself is I was going to say it's not nasty. It's like it's shiny. It feels quite durable. And it's very easy to shuffle. It's lovely to shuffle. But, it's compared to like an indie cardstock or something, it's not nice. It feels quite flimsy. What I do like though, which I hadn't anticipated, is I've got this lovely rainbow effect because of the just the way it's bled through to the ending. So I really, I love that. And actually I probably would have planned for that if I'd known. Let me get the other cards and I'll flip through and I'll show you what else. Now, the main problem with it, and this is my main piece of advice to you, if nothing else, which I wish I'd known, is that a tarot card is not a standard size. So this is A5 card. I just bought some A5 card to do it, and didn't really think, well, I didn't really know that I was definitely going to get it printed. So I didn't anticipate about what printing sizes would be. But a standard tarot or traditional tarot size is thinner than this, quite tall and thin. So which means that, and I'll show you with the first card, with the full card, means that you can see that all of this is taken off. I've had to crop that out. Now, as I said, I could have used a different company and custom sizes. It would have cost a lot more, and I would have avoided that problem. And maybe in a few years, if I still want, if this gets too tatty or I want a new copy, I will do that. But I would probably change the artwork, and there's some things I'm not quite happy with. So I would probably, this, if I'm going to be perfectionist and spend that much money, I would change things. So that was the mistake. Now, this one is not too bad. It's cut off the cat, my poor little cat. But in some it's actually almost cut off a few of the words. So It is a bit of a mess. Thank God it's not a Kickstarter. Imagine it. No one would ever. And thank God this is only my deck. It's knew I never could sell it for copyright reasons anyway. So it's just a tool for myself. I can, and part of this process has been accepting those imperfections and thinking that's okay. It's got, this deck has got lots of flaws, but it is special because I've made it and because it is a connection with, I think, with who I am and my personal relationships with the cards. And no deck that I buy is ever going to compete with that. So it is my favourite tarot deck because it is mine and I've made it. And that's also to say that, that would be the same for anyone. If you made your own tarot deck, it would be your favourite too, because you would have a personal relationship that you're never ever going to have the same depth of relationship with a bought deck. I'm pretty sure of that. I know that sounds very black and white thinking, and I don't normally assert things so confidently, but I'm pretty sure that is so. That's something that you create yourself, you're always going to have a deeper relationship with, which is a reason to do it, even if, like me, you're not an artist and it's not going to be as pretty as something that you would buy. So anyway, let's start the flip through and I will go through some of the other things. So that's one of the main frustrations, is about this cropping issue. The other thing I would say that I found really hard about this deck was the lettering. And I never really got onto the top of that. I tried to use gesso and this slew kind of printing. I do everything in like a mirror image and then try and kind of press it on while the gesso is wet, and it didn't really work and I'd have to go over in pen. So towards the end, I started cutting out, words from magazines and stuff, which was, then I would spend hours trying to find the correct words sometimes. And that was frustrating, and I wouldn't always get the exact lyric I wanted because of that. So that wasn't ideal either. So I wish I'd found a way through the lettering, and that was my main frustration with the art. My art became more simple as I progressed. You can see in the printing, I think, maybe that it does tend to flatten everything. It means that mainly I prefer the example here. There are a few where I actually prefer the printed, especially because, I could change the saturation and stuff. So I've also got this border. I can't really cut the border out because the back is borderless, but I don't mind it too much. I usually don't like borders in tarot decks, but I don't mind it too much. This was one of my first, and it was sort of collage linked, actually the collage does print quite well, but I got bored of the collage halfway through and started using more of the gesso and more of the paint. It seemed to have more energy to it to me. I really like how this one came out. I don't like this one at all. You can see that I had to take a photo and then obviously it's a mess. So that was a shame because it's one of my favourite songs and one of my favourite tarot cards. So I was disappointed with that. This one I was quite, I was pleased with that. I think this one actually came out quite well. It's got a bit of an old feel, old sort of zine kind of low tech kind of fanzine thing going to it, which I like. I like that vibe. But yeah, I did get simpler and simpler with what I was doing. With the song choices, sometimes like for Strength, for example, I really, really couldn't decide between Pull Out the Pin and Get Out of My House. I think I went for the right choice. Sometimes I think I just had to go for a hunch. What I'm going to do, I've got a notebook now, and I've started writing in that and my ideas and trying to get to know the deck and trying to deepen my choices and think, well, why I chose this. Which isn't to say that I think I chose the wrong song. It's that I think I often chose this song instinctively, and then I need to think backwards and, go backwards and try and find my reasonings behind it, which has partly been what these videos have been about, I suppose. It has been hard. I set quite early on, I thought I'm going to do one video a week. Because I couldn't really manage, I felt, to record more than that. It felt like a doable, and it certainly has, and long term it's helped me. So this is the Hanged Man. It's helped me to do that, but it's made it hard, I think, in terms of sustaining interest for the channel, something which is very niche anyway. And, it's been hard for me sometimes, especially during the middle. There was a time where I thought, I don't know whether I can carry on with this. I've lost momentum. It feels it's dragging on. But I'm glad in the end that I took a long time to do it, because I think it's given me, I think the result is deeper. I've deepened my knowledge of the tarot and the songs and everything as a result. This is my favourite card, actually, in the whole deck, I think. I don't like how it's been printed. The black often doesn't come out dark enough when I've taken the photos, but I really like the texture of the gesso. I had a black and this turquoise. And in general, I would say with this deck that what it's been fantastic for is all the cards that I've feared before. By doing this deck, and by forcing myself to really think about those energies, I no longer fear those cards. Those cards, when I'm using this deck, I look forward to those cards coming up. And something like the Devil, which I didn't fear, but I never quite understood. This was my favourite. I think this was my favourite video that I did, actually, because I really enjoyed talking about the red shoes, and Clarissa Pinkola Estés talks a lot about red shoes in Women Who Run With Wolves, and I talk about that in the video, and that's given me a lot more depth and perspective to the Devil card. It's really helped me to find a route in to understanding it. This is the Tower. I much prefer the original for this because you've got this thick paint. The printed version doesn't really cope well with the printing, with the textures. Although it's worked quite well with the gold, hasn't it? Here we have the star. I was really pleased with this one because I wanted a sassy moon. I love the moon card. I wanted something powerful, and the moon is a journey. It's a journey through mystery and darkness. And this felt like Kate Bush saying, yeah, come this way. It's not as scary as you think. I'll just show you this one first, and actually then I'll say what I was going to say about Kate Bush. So this one's Bertie. None of my family like this card. They all say it looks like the Teletubby moon. And yeah, I'm not sure either now. But I do think Bertie is exactly the right energy for the sun. Wake the Witch, I wanted to make it Jig of Life. I love the Jig of Life, and I prefer that song to Wake the Witch, but I wanted Wake the Witch to be in a tarot deck. It just seemed the perfect words. And here we come to the World card again. So I wanted to say what it's been like having Kate Bush as this muse, because I think that was possibly one of my main motivators. Feeling middle-aged and stale, I would say, and I was wanting to connect more with my younger self, my inner child and my inner teen, and the person that loved Kate Bush and found her inspiring. There has been something strangely emotional sometimes. I'm looking at this photo and that's a good example. So many of these were taken from the John Carter Bush book. So they were photos that her brother took of her. So there's an intimacy, I think, in those photos. And I know it's a lot of projection. Having any sort of muse is about projection, isn't it? But there's something emotional in how I relate to Kate Bush's. She has a very expressive face, and she's sort of a route in to me accessing my own emotions, I think, just like a good actor does. This is Four of Wands. I actually prefer this in the print. As I said, the collage often, it gets rid of the messiness. It sort of tidies up the collage a bit, the printing. I think in terms of Kate Bush, what have I learned from her? Well, I was surprised about how many sort of spiritual questions and themes come up in her music. I think that it, if I'd chosen a different singer-songwriter, it wouldn't have been so much. She is very, I was going to say, well, but she does seem very sort of connected to her spiritual side, and she often asks those deep spiritual questions and explores them in many of her songs. So it was quite easy to choose songs in that respect, because I think they fitted very well with tarot. So it was nice. It was a nice surprise, actually, to just see how well it fitted and how spiritual some of her songs are. I think I knew already that there's, she takes on so many different characters and there's such a variety in her work. I think it's a reminder for me when I'm writing that you don't necessarily have to write autobiographically to have a lot of emotion in what you write. That you can take on characters and stories and it can still have that emotional truth. I've also found it really inspiring to think about her career in general and how she uses the retreat. I don't know whether a retreat is the right word, actually. It's almost like a regeneration or a fallow period, or times when she's away from the public eye. How she uses that time to rebuild, and that cyclical nature of her creativity is so essential. And the patience she seems to have, the patience in how long she takes to create an album, and the patience she seems to have in the long period she leaves between. Perhaps it doesn't feel like that to her from the inside, but perhaps she feels as impatient as I do about things. But I did find that inspiring to think, well, that there's no rush. Things take their time, do allow for the cycles, which is definitely the message, I think, of the tarot too. So here we have Wuthering Heights and the Knight of Wands. I loved doing the Queens, actually. These were my favourite cards to do. So here we have the Queen of Wands. And it's interesting to look at the lyrics. So by for example, but how she was before the tears, I think isn't really a particular Queen of Wands lyric. But when I thought about the story of Babushka and that idea, I think sometimes how, well, I related, this is very personal to me, but that relationship of feeling like, have I lost my former energy? Have I lost that Queen of Wands power? And that's something that I suppose as, you know, a middle-aged woman I was thinking about a lot. This is Houdini. This was a difficult one. I kept changing my mind over who the King of Wands would be. For a while I felt it fitted with the Elvis song better. I would redo this card, I don't like it. But I like the choice of, you know, Kate Bush in this stage womb. It's, you know, perfect for Ace of Cups. And this is Two of Cups. I think it's strange, especially, you know, as a 51-year-old woman, having this pop idol. A special interest, if you like. I suppose I'm autistic, so I'm used to having special interests. And other people thinking them strange. And that being part of the way that I process the world. But it's made me think about, what do I project onto her? What is it that I see in Kate Bush that I want to express in myself that I'm not quite expressing? And I don't think I am, or I wouldn't have wanted to create this deck. And maybe I hoped that by the end of creating this deck, I would be closer to knowing exactly what that is, or having the bravery to express that. I'm not sure I am. I do know that I admire Kate Bush's celebration of weirdness. The thing that she doesn't seem, I mean, she seems quite reserved, and when you see her, introverted almost when you see her interviewed, but she seems to have the confidence to express her authentic weird self. And I think that was what I've been searching for. I love this one, makes me always feel quite emotional. I mean, this is a sad card, the Eight of Cups, but I feel soothed when I see this picture of Kate Bush here. And this one, I much prefer the original. This has really flattened it out. In terms of what I've learned about tarot, I mean, obviously I've had the discipline of having to choose a card, choose a song, create the card, and then try and explain it through the video. I think the video has been really helpful for me in that respect. And that maybe if I hadn't done a YouTube channel, I would have just rushed the process. I know I probably would have rushed the process and not got as much out of it. But feeling I had to make a video and explain my choices has deepened my reflection. It was interesting to realise what cards that I struggled with. I think, as I said in a previous video, I realised that I'd left most of the threes towards the end. So, I mean, here we have the Queen of Cups. You know, as you know, I love doing the queens. I wouldn't have expected that, and I didn't like doing the threes. And I think maybe long term that is something for me to reflect on and to wonder what that says about me. We've all got certain energies that we're more comfortable expressing. I mean, the Kings is another card that I found difficulty with. Haven't really been in many leadership roles. Don't really relate to the King as an archetype. And I struggled to create the King cards as a result. And I probably wouldn't have known that if I hadn't made my own deck. So again, this is something that making my own deck has helped me realise about myself that I wouldn't have. I think in general, this is an amazing shadow deck. So now we're on the Three of Swords. Really difficult card, but I love this song. This is a very soothing song, I think. I have, since having the deck, sometimes or often listened to the Kate Bush song that goes with the card. And then that has helped me access a different emotion again. I think through music, I often access emotions that I can't just through words or through pictures. It does go to a different part of myself. I enjoyed doing this and researching about this. This is Five of Swords, about Castaway, which wasn't a film that I'd seen, and the whole story behind that. It's been interesting to see how broad her references are and to learn more about the songs themselves. This one's another one which makes me feel the restful. This is the Six of Swords. So I suppose we are getting to the shadow cards now. We're getting to these nasty this is the Seven of Swords, and we're getting to the nasty swords cards. And great thing is when I pull these cards now, I have some brilliant Kate Bush songs to listen to, and yeah, it takes the sting out of them. I loved creating this. I really got the texture and scratched through, and yeah, again, it doesn't. I can't show that on the printing here, but that was I really I think this is what convinced me that I just wanted to make simpler designs, and I'd probably do that if I was going to start and do this again. I'd just do far more simple cards and rely on the fact of there's so many great photos of Kate Bush. Although saying that, I wish there were more of her, more recent ones, more of her older. I suppose you could say she's in her crone stage now, as I am. And I wish there was, I wanted to see her in her crone stage, more of that crone energy. Don't just want a tarot deck full of young women. There's too many like that. So I wish she wasn't so shy around the camera now. I wish there had been more really nice pictures of her more recently to have used. Here we have the King of Swords. I mean, the wind is whistling through the house seemed perfect for the King of Swords, even though I just wasn't sure about the Elvis connection. Now with you to the Pentacles. Pentacles was quite, was it hard? I'm not sure it was hard actually, because she does, I feel like Kate Bush does often have nature references in many of her songs, and this suit in particular often has, I wanted to bring in those grounding nature references that you get from the Pentacles. This is the Three of Pentacles. This has been my card of the month, so this has been on my altar, the Four of Pentacles. I like the idea of the tree begin to breathe, because I like the idea of stability. But even something that seems stable is breathing. A tree is moving. It is a living thing. So against the sort of rigid nature that we can, sort of frozen, rigid nature we can take on sometimes with that Four of Pentacles. So it's been a helpful one to reflect on. Five of Pentacles, which is, I feel like it's one of my soul cards. Five of Pentacles, that feeling of being an outsider. Six of Pentacles. I think with Kate Bush, she is someone that goes to the shadow a lot in her songs, whether it's her shadow or the characters that she takes on. She has a curiosity about the darkness, which makes me feel braver as well, which is also why I said it's like a shadow deck to me. She's giving me encouragement to go to the difficult places, as she does. I have a tabby cat myself, so I had to have this picture somewhere in the deck, and it seemed perfect for the Nine of Pentacles. I really like Coral Room as Ten of Pentacles, that sense of an ending. That, I suppose that's what music is so good at, is holding two emotions at once and connecting the cards to music has, I think, helped bring out the light and shade in both of the cards. This is Under the Ivy. That's a Page of Pentacles. You have the Knight of Pentacles. This one, disaster. Cut it off half her face. But I really like the original. And this is Song of Solomon. She had that lovely sensual kind of energy, I think. You know, sometimes I think Queen of Pentacles is portrayed as a little bit prim, but I don't see it that way. She's a sensual, kind of Venus-like, Empress-like figure. And this is the last card. King of Pentacles. It's a strange card because it has got myself as a young child on this card. But that was, you know, one of my main feelings when I finished this deck and I got it printed. I thought my young self, my 8-9-year-old self, would have been so pleased and excited at the whole idea of getting your own deck of cards printed and this whole process. My mum used to say when I was growing up that she knew I was happy when I was making things. And this has just been a joy to make something. Just for myself, not really as although I know I've shared it on YouTube, but not with any kind of economic or financial gain or anything. And as I said, I feel I don't know this deck fully yet, even though I've spent so long time making it. I've got a notebook and I am going to deepen my knowledge and awareness and, you know, really get to know the deck and its personality. Thank you so much for watching this video and any other videos that you've watched. As always, you know, if you have any comments about any of this, please leave them. I don't know what I'm going to do for this channel. I definitely think I'm going to take a Kate Bush cue of just stopping and taking a bit of a break and have a reflection. I've cleared out my office now. It had lots of collage and paint and it was quite messy, and that's all in a new little cupboard I've got. And I feel like I'm space clearing. I don't know. I feel maybe a space this is finishing and maybe a space needs to clear and then something new might happen. I don't know. But I'm in that liminal, not really sure stage at the moment, which is also how I feel. Has this deck doing this changed me? I don't think it has yet, but I do feel like I've got a tool to ground me and something, a companion, if you like. And a companion in a sense that I haven't felt with any other tarot deck. So that makes me feel more secure for what is ahead. But I don't feel I've got any answers or feel any more certain about things. I feel that things have maybe shifted a little bit, or something has changed in me, but it's really hard to know what yet. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your rest of your day. And yeah, thanks for coming with me on my journey. Goodbye.